Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'll be the first to say this as we welcome you into a new edition of Sports for Beginners, the podcast, alongside our co-host and host of On the Ice and Behind the Benches, Thomas McGregor. Get ready, get set. It's a double trouble of Blue Jays baseball, all in one episode. Pick up a seat and don't be late. Episode 19 of Season 4, Sports for Beginners, brings you Yankees Blue Jays and Blue Jays Angels all in one episode, and it starts right now. The Blue Jays are back, and right now, with the game having gone final, we are welcoming you in to Blue Jays game recap on the Sports for Beginners podcast. Now, let's go to your hosts of Blue Jays game recap, Thomas McGregor, Ali Musa, and Scott McGregor in the Sports for Beginners podcast studio. Take it away, gentlemen, because when the umpire says, "You're out," or "That's the game," or "Let's play ball," we know it's time for some baseball. This is Blue Jays game recap. Take it away, gentlemen. Good afternoon on this Monday, July 7th, 2025. I am Scott McGregor, your host of the program. Welcome to a special Sports for Beginners drop episode. We don't drop episodes normally on a Monday. It might actually even drop on a Tuesday, but it is a homestand recap episode, Blue Jays game recap edition. Hence why we didn't have our original music that we would have on a season episode. We had a Blue Jay game recap music. First, to the Canadian listeners out there, I hope everybody, even if you were watching Yankees Blue Jays, I hope everybody had a great Canada Day long weekend out there in Canada and across the globe in Canada. I also hope for our American listeners who may have been watching the Yankees and the Mets and maybe the Blue Jays and the Angels, I hope your 4th of July was a great one, as the long weekends for Canada Day and the 4th of July have come and gone. Before we get into Thomas and his thoughts and my thoughts on the Yankees series, I want to let you guys know that we will be doing a White Sox series recap game by game following those final scores. As we speak with you right now, the Blue Jays are top dogs in the division. A Sunday ago, last Sunday to be more specific, that was not the case. The Yankees, the New York Yankees, top dogs. It's funny how it changes, but now, Blue Jays fans, we can finally say with a clear conscience, because the standings as of our recording prove it, the Blue Jays are, yes, they are number one in the American League East. So first of all, Thomas, my apologies, ladies and gentlemen, for that technical issue there that we encountered. Thomas, I want to start with you before we let the people know where the Blue Jays and the Yankees are at right now. But what were some of your key takeaways from this game? And we'll talk about Michael Kay and Jamie Campbell later on before we get to the Angels series. But I do want to let everyone know that during the Angels series, I should say, when the Yankees were playing against the Mets, Michael Kay came out and, well, some might call it an apology. I'd like to call it what Jamie Campbell called it in one of his tweets. Just two guys who love the game of baseball and they were just having some fun. So, and another thing I will comment on is that Michael Kay said, as you'll hear momentarily in the audio that we're going to provide for you, all credit to Yes Network, the broadcasting corporation of the New York Yankees right now. We want to let everyone in that Michael Kay is not fanboy. He's not that kind of guy. He is absolutely not that kind of guy. So Thomas, take it away here. What were some of your takeaways from Yankees Blue Jays this series?
Well, I mean, some of the takeaways from this series, by far, you got to look at the lineups, the way that the Blue Jays and the Yankees played this series. Now, remember, the Blue Jays were rather 7 games, 8 games back of the Yankees early in the month of June. You get to the Red Sox series where they end up taking 2 out of 3. And then you bring the Yankees in, and everybody's thinking the same thing. It's the Blue Jays, it's the Yankees. Watch this series go Yankees take 2, Blue Jays take 2. They're going to split the series in 4 games. The Blue Jays and the Yankees said, you guys think that's going to happen, but that is not what we are thinking is going to happen. What we didn't account for was something that's never been done in this series with the Yankees and the Jays. The Jays taking all 4 games. We probably could have seen the Yankees taking 4 games, but we couldn't see the Blue Jays sweeping the Yankees, let alone being at that 4th game of the series, the one that could easily overtake the first place spot in the American League East with a 3-way tie between the Blue Jays, the Rays, and the Yankees. Had it gone the Yankees' way, they would have taken sole possession at least for before they got within the New York Mets, the time being of Game 1 of the New York Mets series and Game 1 of the Blue Jays series against the LA Angels of Anaheim. More on that series coming up later, but for the time being, had the Yankees taken 1 out of the 4 games, they would have had sole possession of the American League East. And I think it's important to note that with the Blue Jays not only taking the series against the Blue, they were on pace going into Game 4 to do something they've never done in Toronto before, sweep the Yankees. They were ready to bring out the broom, but some would say that's hard to do. The bottom line is the Blue Jays did it. They took all 4, and I'll leave it at this to take a break and the Blue Jays game recap. They, for the first time in its franchise history against the Yankees, have swept the Yankees. We'll break down the games, get to the scoring line, get you the pitching matchups, and give our key takeaways on the other side of Blue Jays game recap. But coming up next, is Michael Kay and Jamie Campbell just having fun? Or is Michael Kay and Jamie Campbell trying to fire one another? The Yankees broadcast and the Blue Jay broadcast conversation before the game. That's next when we continue. Stay with us.
I wonder if I could make it. It's almost getting to 8 o'clock p.m., and I am still a few more steps away from home to get to my computer to listen to CNT Radio's Cosmopolitan Culture Club. The best of the best music from around the world. Can't wait. I think I made it. CNT Radio, making your day brighter, one song at a time.
Looking for a sports podcast that covers sports weekly as well as gets you set up for the day? Check out Weekly in Sports with me, Scott McGregor. We give some shout outs of the week to podcasts like this one and those who do them. Discuss the Blue Jays, Bills, Raptors, and more. To learn more, check out the Sports for Beginners Facebook page. Search Sports for Beginners.
Take another look with Gerda Felix and Melanie Taddeo Malo, two powerful women of diverse backgrounds having genuine, unique, and uncomfortable conversations that everyone needs to have. Join Melanie and Gerda for conversations about what is missing from human connections.
We have been asked about the broom relentlessly these last couple of days, so here it is because we just witnessed something that has not been done in the history of the Blue Jays, sweeping all four from the Yankees here in Toronto. First time. And I can think of a certain Yankee broadcaster, in fact, who is going to have to go on his show tomorrow and admit that the Blue Jays are a first-place team because the standings prove it.
Welcome back to Yankees batting practice today, presented by Audi. It is that time. We spend our Sundays with our Michael Kay, and he joins us right now. Michael, okay, things have been brewing. Jay skipper John Schneider and some of the broadcasters, a reaction or two to your take on the Jays. I am just going to lay out, let you go, take it away. Have at it.
Oh, here you go. It's interesting. So what I would say to Jamie is I can easily say the Blue Jays are a first-place team because I'm not a fawning fanboy. I'm a broadcaster, and the bottom line is they are, in fact, a first-place team. Also, the whole narrative has been skewed by people who misinterpreted and didn't hear everything that I said on my radio show. I was talking about the Pythagorean theorem of...
As we roll on here on our Blue Jays game recap, you're hearing right now from Michael Kay. Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen, to Blue Jays game recap. I am Scott McGregor. This is a 19th, I should say, episode of season 4. We are currently hearing from Michael Kay, into Jamie Campbell's comments saying, I can think of a certain Yankee broadcaster who is going to have to go on his show on Sunday, or rather tomorrow, that's what Jamie said at that time, and talk about the Blue Jays being number 1 in the AL East. That's what we are talking about as we get you ready for White Sox and Blue Jays. More on that later. But let's keep it going here and hear more from Michael's reaction.
I never said that run differential is more important than wins and losses. Of course it's not. But baseball perspective, places like that, they take the run differential and they try to figure out exactly what the record would be. And the Blue Jays have exceeded that with their gritty, gutty style of play. And one final thing. It's kind of funny if you think about it. Imagine, Nancy, if Jack Curry was waving a broom on the Yankee postgame show. He would probably be called into the office and shortly fired after that. Now, I love Toronto. It is a cosmopolitan city. It's one of the greatest cities in the world for me. I think it's great. You're waving a broom on a postgame show. You're turning it into Mayberry RFD. I just don't get it. I don't understand it. You should be proud of the fact you're in first place. And one final thing. You shouldn't hang on the rim 3 minutes into the third quarter of a basketball game. Feel good about sweeping the Yankees. Feel good about winning all these games in a row. Feel good about being in first place.
So your thoughts, Thomas, on Mr. K's comments. Take it away on Michael's comments.
So yeah, it is very tough to admit it. What he said, that it was not simply something he was apologizing for. He was apologizing, but Michael Kay he stated that the Blue Jays and the Yankees, when you talk about run differential and you talk about teams like the Blue Jays and the Yankees, he was complimenting the Blue Jays. He was complimenting the Blue Jays because now they have exceeded expectations of run differential. At the time, he said that on his radio show, it didn't look like run differential for the Blue Jays would be exceeded expectations. And I say at the time because if you remember, the Blue Jays and the Rays were 1 game back. They were 1 game back of the New York Yankees going into the last game of the 4-game series between the Blue Jays and the New York Yankees. If we were cheering on Michael Kay or cheering on Jamie, I could say that both men deserve credit because they're just two guys having fun talking about baseball. I want people to understand, though, and I know that this may rub some people the wrong way, but I'm going to say it anyway. What Michael Kay and Jamie were talking about on both broadcasts is that it doesn't matter what kind of run differential you're talking about, as long as you're having fun doing it and talking about it in a great perspective for both teams, this shouldn't be an issue. What I want people to understand is they're just two guys having fun. They're doing their job and they're having fun doing it. Jamie mentioned on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it, he has great respect for Michael Kay. And Michael has great respect for Jamie. They're just two guys having fun. And when Jamie said what he had said on air, he was trying to have fun. He was making sure that he didn't cross any lines. And I don't think he crossed any lines. He was saying that for the first time on the show, Blue Jay Central post game, we were finally able to say first place in the AL East, the American League East, for the Blue Jays. Something they've never been able to say in recent seasons, past seasons. And you also got to remember, going into the next series that we're going to talk about once we're done with the Yankees, the Blue Jays taking on the Angels at that point in time, while they were in sole possession of the American League East leaders, you have to also remember the Blue Jays winning all 4 against the Yankees could have very easily been just 3 games against the Yankees victories and 3 games against the Angels, or 2 games against the Angels, with one of those 3 going to the Angels. So if we look at our American League standings update, and we've got in our chat here from our host Scott, the American League East standings going into Chicago, and of course the Yankees, we'll talk about where they're headed after facing the Mets. Their record is 49 and 41. Record for the Blue Jays 52 and 38. They haven't lost a game since taking 2 out of 3 against the Boston Red Sox. Speaking of the Red Sox, they are 46 and 45. So they still have a pretty decent record in the American League East. They are still pretty good where it stands. The Orioles, on the other hand, they are 5th in the American League East, known as dead last, but I'm just going to go with 5th in the American League East, and they currently have a record of 40 wins and 49 losses. Let me say it again. They picked up 40 victories and they have only lost 40. If you look at the standings from the American League Central, you've got the Tigers at first place. Their record of 57 wins and 34 losses. You look at the Twins, their record, second place, they are 43 wins and 47 losses. How about the third place Royals, 43 and 48? That's the record for them. Guardians, they are in 4th. They have a record of 48, which means they've won 40 victories of a game and picked up only 48 losses. How about the White Sox? 30 and 60. They are currently dead last in the American League Central. However, if they go on a heater, and when they go on a heater, look out, baseball fans, because they may be dead last, but it's dead last teams that say, just watch me. And pretty soon, and I mean no disrespect to the teams that are having great vibes right now, some greater than others, but you got to keep it up because if these teams that are dead last start getting hot, you are going to be at a point where, especially come trade deadline, just a couple of weeks from now, I believe, you are going to get to the point where you need to figure out how to beat those teams and keep your possession in check. The Blue Jays finished this homestand against the Yankees and the Angels a complete 7-0. They had not lost a single Rogers Center game in this homestand. The last time that happened was between 2015 and the years prior to 2015. It should be feeling like 2015, but those vibes now. The Blue Jays, as I mentioned, they're on vibes, and we're going to get into the games now. But to Michael K. and even Jamie's point, what they're saying is that they are having fun and they're making sure that they're doing their job. Now, I get the whole point about the sweep, the brew, your own little broadcast note, but the way you back that up on a broadcast is you give respect and credit to those who, at the time of your teams meeting each other, could enemies or rivals, or perhaps you could just give them respect and credit for what a fantastic series they have done and how they have been able to manage it. With that being said, before I send it back to Scott, our American League West standings go as follows. The Angels series of record 43-46. And over in the third place, you've got the Rangers with 44 wins and 46 losses. Well, at the top of the charts, you've got in first place and second place the Mariners and the Astros of Houston, who are currently 55 and 35 and 48 and 42. 48-32 for the Mariners and 55-35 for the Astros. When you look at a standings update like that, or a series of Blue Jay or Yankee baseball coming up between the Astros, Athletics, Rangers, Mariners, Angels, what have you, you look at those matchups and you say, how do I become better? I even said it when the Blue Jays were in the dumps. And I don't mean dumps to rant on our Blue Jay fans. No, I don't mean that. I mean when we, the Blue Jay fans, and the Blue Jays were kind of in ups and downs. One day they were winning games. Next day they weren't winning the game. Days later they end up winning games. Days later they end up losing games. It can happen to anyone. The Yankees had a rough week. 4 games against the Blue Jays, 3 games against the Mets. They made sure when they were against the Mets that they had to take at least 1 game out of that series. And that is what Yankees baseball and Blue Jays baseball and every baseball team in particular in MLB is all about. Having fun, doing your job, and creating the best entertainment for the fans. Back to you, Scott.
Indeed it is. And I can't stress that enough as someone who, when I started this podcast, as someone who wanted to follow the great game of baseball. And honestly, I couldn't do that because I was starting mid-season. We were supposed to start the podcast, I should say, start of the year for baseball, but didn't work out. So we started doing football, basketball, hockey, you name it. But that's a story for another time down the road. I can't stress that enough, though. Baseball is baseball. It's going to happen. Guys are going to get hurt. Guys are going to get injured. But if you're not playing good baseball, you're not going to win many ball games. Baseball games, that is. And I'll add to that. Actually, no. Let's get down to business. So we talk about the Yankees. We talk about the Blue Jays. Pretty much the whole sweep sums it up. But I'll start us off with some takeaways from the game, and we'll give Thomas to get us the line score, just line score, no team comparison part, just line score of each game. but I'll do that again on the White Sox recap following game 1 of that series. With that said, the takeaways I have from the Yankee series. Number 1, George Springer's 4 homers in the entire series. And not only that, George Springer's contributions on Canada Day. Number 2, Addison being Addison. Now, not to quote Kevin Barker, but Addison broke his bat his second last at bat. And I know a lot of us have been accustomed to the Bam Bam thing, and I myself have been accustomed to it. But I'm just going to go with Addison. Addison broke his bat, was not happy with one of the calls he got in his second to last at bat. We go to extra innings in one of these. Did we go to? I want to make sure I have that right. Did we go to extra innings in one of these games? Let's see. Nope, no, and no. So no, all 4 games we did not go to extra innings in the Yankees series. But yes, Barger was good this series. He was good this series. Was he also good the series after that? Oh, absolutely he was. But to my credit there, because I moved kind of over to the Angels, to my credit there, one of the things that makes him stand out in the homestand is when we went to extra innings in the Angels series, he broke his bat one of his second to last at bats. And the next thing you would see later is get a nice little pitch to hit. It would seal the deal. And speaking of sealing the deal, Addison also sealed the deal in the last game of that series. Yes, he didn't make all 3 great catches, but he made 2 good catches, and one of them ended the game. It was an oh my goodness moment that I would like to call it. Back to the Yankees, though. Addison, obviously, his future speaks for itself. I really like what I saw from him. And George Springer, that was one of my definite key takeaways of that series. But also, how about Ernie Clement? When you need a guy to do something for you, I get it. A lot of times he won't do it. But Ernie stood out to me in this series and in this homestand, too. On the Yankees side of things, not too much that stands out, but Max Fried, I thought he played pretty well against the Blue Jays. Aaron Judge, look, baseball fans are going to do whatever they want to do. But Aaron Judge, he feeds off of fans booing him. And it showed in this series with the Jays here at home when the Blue Jays were playing the Yankees. It showed. It absolutely showed. You could see that he was ready to hit a ball out of the park. He feeds off of boos. I know a lot of fan bases, especially the Blue Jays fans against the Yankees, are going to say, why shouldn't we boo him? Well, here's my reason why. He feeds off of it. If you boo, guess what? Even if you're a Blue Jays fan out there listening to this right now, if you boo him, he's going to get a good pitch to hit, and then you'll be sorry. Sorry, that was a little strong. I'm not going to say you'll be sorry. That was a little strong. Then you'll be like, oh my goodness, why did he hit that? Well, you booed him. Why did he hit a home run? You booed him and paid the price for it. Thomas, key takeaways from the Yankees.
Well, first off, I mean, it's pretty great. It's pretty great series between the Yankees and the Blue Jays. Obviously, Blue Jay fans, I'm happy that we swept the Yankees, but I think we're missing a lot of key points here for the Yankees. Whether you were at the game Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever game you were at, whether you were watching on the TV or you were just not interested in tuning in to the game, that's on you. But there are so many Yankee takeaways from this game. You hear it a lot sometimes when we have a pitcher versus a pitcher, and we call it the pitching battle. Now, all 4 games in this series, credit to the Yankees where it's due, because, I mean, Fried, you have Max Fried start for the Yankees against the Blue Jays starter. And while both pitchers put on quite a show, it was something you kind of hated for Max Scherzer and Carlos Rodon. It was Carlos Rodon who got the start for that game. You kind of wonder, why was it so close? Why was it so close in the first game Monday? Why was it so close? Well, here's why. The Yankees, yes, they kicked butt, They got 4 runs. The Blue Jays ended up getting 5 runs. But the Blue Jays also ended up getting 10 hits. The difference in game 1 Monday was the Yankees committed to the Blue Jays despite the Yankees getting 7 hits, tried to erase those 2 errors from the Yankees by not allowing themselves to get errors themselves. Go to Tuesday's game, which every home game is Looney Dogs night. Tuesday of game number 2 was Canada Day. So you can't have a Canada Day birthday without doing it in the afternoon because you need time for the CN Tower to set up its fireworks show for later in the evening. How do you do that? Well, you put the game in the afternoon, and while it was a spectacular event with a flyover to help us out, something that I don't think has ever been done before at the Rogers Center or during its time, the Sky Dome. But you look at it this one, the Blue Jays, 12 runs, 8 hits. This time, they end up committing 2 errors. Tuesday, well, you committed 2 errors already, Yankees, in game number 1. You managed to only make 1 costly mistake as an error, but are able to yet again push the Blue Jays to their breaking point. In game number 2, this was another game where the situation at one point in the game could have eventually turned in the Yankees' favor. The Blue Jays needed a big 7th inning home half to make sure they could take care of business on Canada Day and beat the Yankees to take 2 games in the series. But this is why I bring up the fact that it could have changed. Look at it. The Yankees got 2 runs early. They got on the board first. It's 2-0 Yankees throughout the first 3 innings of that ball game. You get to the 4th inning, and the Blue Jays tack on 4 runs. And wouldn't you know it, what was a 2-0 Yankees lead has now become a 4-2 Blue Jays lead over the Yankees, having 4 runs come across the plate. And why do I bring that up? Well, in the bottom of the 4th, George Springer gets things started with a home run. Then you go to Andres. For him to get a ball out of the yard, that's his 5th of the season. And by that time, we had 2 runners on. The Blue Jays had 2 runners on. So the Blue Jays have it, right? Well, that's it. Blue Jays win. Yankees lose, right? No, that's not what happened. The Blue Jays sensed opportunity to take things their way. But what happened to get the Yankees closer to a 1-run game? Well, Ernie Clement, we've talked about him. He was a standout player in this series and in the Angels series as well. But what do you do? Well, Ernie Clement makes a fielding error, costly mistake by him. Something you don't really want to see, Blue Jay fans. And Giancarlo Stanton reaches on an error. Cody Bellinger scores. And by that point, the game is a 1-run ball game. You move to the fielder's choice. It's Jason Dominguez. What does he do? He reaches on a fielder's choice. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. by the first baseman who chooses to try and get somebody out. Giancarlo Stanton goes to third, and just when you think that that was the 3rd out, you get a fielding error by Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Sorry, it's Jazz Chislahome Jr. who scores. However, the Blue Jays do manage to get an out or 2 to finish it off with a strikeout swinging play, so they do get out of the inning. You go to the 7th inning, the bottom of the 7th inning. Remember, it is tied at this point, 4-4.
Yeah, sorry, Thomas, we gotta cut it off here because we're coming into a break here. But yes, everything going on with the Jays. Yeah, well, the reality is that they sweep the Yankees, and that is why they are now top dogs in the East. But that could have easily been in the Yankees' favor. We'll talk more about it as we get
Yeah.
you into the Angels after another quick word. This one from our friends over at CNT Radio, making your day brighter one song at a time. We'll continue in just a moment.
CNT Radio will never give you up. They will never let you down, nor will they run around or desert you. So join Nick Astley for The Melting Pot every Saturday on CNT Radio. Hang on a minute. He's not Nick Astley. Oh, jings, I've done it wrong. Anyway, just join Nick for The Melting Pot on CNT Radio.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 19 of season 4, Double Trouble Blue Jays Extravaganza, Canada Day / 4th of July Extravaganza. It was supposed to be a Canada Day thing, but you know what? We're giving you 2 different recaps in one episode, so sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. We're with our host of Blue Jays game recap on the ice and behind the benches, Thomas McGregor. And with that said, we really want to get to the Angels. We're going to take turns here running quickly down just the line score, not the team comparison, but just the line score of each game. I'll start us off here with games 1 and 2, including the showdown on Monday. Let's get this going here. The records, by the way, for each team coming in, the Blue Jays were 45 and 38. The Yankees were 48 and 35 going in. I should say 47 and 36 going in. Nope, 48 and 35, I should say. I got that right. There we go. Records out of game number 1, 46 and 38 for the Blue Jays, 48 and 36 for the Yankees. For the Yankees in game 1, 4 runs, 7 hits, 2 errors. For the Jays, 5 runs, 10 hits, no errors. Off we go to Canada Day. This is the day where the Blue Jays once again pick up the win. Only this time, instead of 5-4, it's 12-5. Blue Jays finishing the game with 12 runs on 8 hits, 2 errors. Yankees finishing off the ball game with 5 runs on 9 hits, 1 error. All right, Thomas, the floor is yours. Game 3 and game 4. Let us know what's our line score of each game, one at a time. Let's start with game 3.
All right, everybody. Well, the Blue Jays and, of course, the Yankees take us into game number 3 and 4 with our line scores looking like this. For the Blue Jays, 11 runs, 13 hits, no errors. For the Yankees, almost feel like I said anchors. There we go. The Yankees, 9 runs, 15 hits, 1 error. So once again, Yankees 9 runs, 15 hits, 1 error. Blue Jays 11 runs, 13 hits, no errors. That's trying to be a little funny there. But we really have business to get to. Angels coming up very shortly. The Blue Jays game series finale against the Yankees. Final run score tally before the Yankees say goodbye to the Blue Jays for now, and the Blue Jays say hello to the Angels, while the Yankees say hello to the Mets. Your final run score tally of this game: Blue Jays 8 runs, 11 hits, no errors. Yankees 5 runs, 12 hits, no errors. So just before we get into the Angels, Scott, I do want to provide the takeaway of game number 4 that I think this was the better game from both the Blue Jays and the Yankees. Yeah, I get it. Yankees fans, especially one Yankees fan. I'm gonna mention the name because we got a little bit of feed from him during the series of the Mets as they prepare to do battle with their next team, not known as the New York Mets. So Big Nick, shout out to you if you're watching or listening to this. The reason I bring you up is you are a true New York Yankees fan and you let everyone know it. We understand your frustration for the Blue Jays and we understand the frustration throughout most of the Met games, and we understand your excitement throughout most of the Mets games. We get it. It happens, right? I mentioned it earlier. The Blue Jays and the Yankees. The vibes are riding high for the Blue Jays right now. The Yankees vibes are a little bit mixed emotion. What do we do with our team? Do we fire Boone? Do we fire excuse me, fire Boone? Do we fire our general manager? Do we fire this guy? Do we fire that guy? But you guys have to understand that, and I'm sure you do understand, so I'm not gonna try to be disrespectful. I'm sure you do understand that you guys just had a rough week. You had a rough week. There, I'll leave it at that. You guys had a rough week. You had 4 games against the Blue Jays. You came in with a game plan. Don't let anyone tell you that the Yankees coming into Toronto did not have a game plan. The Blue Jays had a game plan as well. And I'll leave you with this. On the Yankees series, that game plan worked for the Blue Jays the way the Blue Jays thought it would work. But the Yankees, the game plan needed a backup plan. And they had a backup plan within a backup plan within a backup plan. There's the saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix the team. The Blue Jays broke the Yankees throughout the first 3 games. But no matter how many times the Blue Jays tried to break the Yankees in this series of 4 games, the Yankees had a counterpunch. And no matter how many times they tried to break the Blue Jays did the same thing. They had a counterpunch. So call this series what you will, but at the end of that series, the results speak for themselves. You've had a rough week. The Blue Jays have had a great week. Well, not a great week. They've had a good week. They came and faced you 4 games, did something Toronto fans probably never thought possible, sweep you in 4, and here they come to the Angels, which we are going to talk about right now, a team who is riding a bit of a roller coaster. Did they beat the Blue Jays like you probably wanted them to? Maybe, maybe not. We're going to discuss that right now. But I hope you guys understand that Scott and I mean no disrespect to the Yankee fans. We mean no disrespect to any of the baseball fans of the Angels, any of those teams in general. We're just guys who want to have fun, just like you, the fans of the Yankees, the Blue Jays, etc. You want to have fun, that's great. You want to make your notes, want to have fun, perfect. We want to do the same. Let's switch topics, Scott, before I get out of control with the Yankees and the Blue Jays. And go straight to the Angels series right now.
Let's do it. Reminder again, the Yankees and the Blue Jays will meet until after the All-Star break, and the Blue Jays open up a series with, you guessed it, in case you were guessing while I was trying to figure that out for you, you guessed it. If you said San Francisco Giants, ding, 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 that is indeed the right answer. Because it's true. Yes, you may not believe it, but it's true. The San Francisco Giants are coming to Toronto, but we'll talk about that over the course of the week. Right now, let's jump the gun and get to the last series of this homestand. Blue Jays Angels. Absolutely no disrespect at all to the Angels or the Blue Jay fans at all, or any baseball fans. Before we get down to the game, line score, takeaways, what have you, it is important to note manager of the Los Angeles Angels, Ron Washington, is no longer with the team because of a health setback, I believe, and he is also not with Major League Baseball as we speak. So, we hold our hearts and our prayers to Ron Washington, manager of the Los Angeles Angels, hoping that he can get a steady recovery and come back to manage the Angels or whatever opportunity he gets next. The interim manager right now of the team is Johnny Washington. Sorry, it's Ray Montgomery. Excuse me. Ray Montgomery is the interim manager. He would go against John Schneider. Angels coming out of a series with the Braves where that was a 3-game series that started the month of July. They took 2 out of 3, defeating the Braves 4-0 on Tuesday. They lost 8-3 Wednesday and beat the Braves 5-1 on Thursday. They have a 7-game homestand on the way beginning tonight with 4 against Texas and then 3 on the weekend against the Diamondbacks, leading to the All-Star break. But more on that later. All right, let's get to the game. Not much is different in this series, but we're going to start off. I'm going to go over the line scores, and then Thomas is going to lead us off with some takeaways. So let's start with Sunday's game, the last game of this series. The Blue Jays had 3 runs on 8 hits and 1 error in the game. The Angels, 2 runs on 9 hits, no errors. Let's rewind to game 2. This one finished in 11 innings. The final score of yesterday's ball game, even though we flipped the coin back to the Yankees to start off this recap. Now we're on the Angels. Blue Jays beat the Angels yesterday 3-2. They defeated the Angels in 11 innings, 4-3, on account of 4 runs on 13 hits, no errors. The Angels had 3 runs, 7 hits, 1 error. And now back to the game that started it all, when the Blue Jays were 49-38 to start, and the Angels came to Rogers Center at 500 at 43-43. Blue Jays winning that game in 10 innings by the same score they won in 11 innings, 4-3. This time on account of 5 hits, 4 runs, 1 error. The Angels, 3 runs, 5 hits, 2 errors. All right, Thomas, key takeaways from the Angels series. Let's limit it to 2 for this series from the Angels. So, key takeaways. I've mentioned it during our Yankee recap a little bit that I liked what I saw from Addison Barger, and I also liked what I saw from Ernie Clement. Let's start on the Angels side for you. What did you like from the Angels?
I mean, look, you can't spell Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim without Mike Trout. And you certainly can't look at the LA Angels as a team that ain't good. Look at this throughout the entire series. This is the first takeaway of the series, okay? LA Angel fans, Blue Jays fans, look at it this way, okay? You had a game on Friday on Apple TV. Everybody's complaining that it's not on the FanDuel Sports Network. It's not on Sportsnet. It's not on anywhere but a radio station, unless I want the TV, which is Apple TV. The thing you misinterpreted, probably, and I'm probably misinterpreting it myself right now, is that Apple TV actually had a pretty good game up until the later frames. I mean, look at it. Look at this key takeaway for Friday. Look at this. If you look at that score sheet, you will see a bunch of zeros, and I mean a bunch of zeros, from the first 5 straight innings. Name me one inning in that entire game on Friday that you could say a run would have actually scored before we got to like the 6th inning. While you're doing that, here is the run score. The Blue Jays get 3 runs in their half of the 6th inning of that game. And then you go to a guy like Taylor Ward for the Angels. This is the takeaway from the Angels from Friday. Taylor Ward and Joe Adele do this in the top of the 6th inning. They combine Joe Adele for his 18th home run of the season and of the year, scoring not just Mike Trout, but also Taylor Ward. Joe Adele, he is the one that hits this ball out, and it was out in a hurry. Blue Jays fans at Rogers Center, I could tell you from the Blue Jay fans that we were seeing at the Rogers Center, if you were there, we're not really on high spirits at that time. They were in mixed emotions because the game was tied at 3. And again, that happened to be the case when we went to 11 innings. You look at the Blue Jay takeaway, you're probably thinking, my takeaway from the Blue Jays, if you look at it from Friday, happened to be one of the worst plays I've ever seen in Angels baseball history. I'm talking about the LA Angels giving the Blue Jays something you don't see very often in extra innings. I was at Rogers Center. I was distracted in the bottom of the 10th doing something, and that's a story for another time. But look at the play. Ernie Clement on the plate, and what does Ernie do? He lays down a bunt. Now he knows he's out because it's a sac bunt. What no one knows is that by the time we think Ernie is out, with no one out at this time, you've got Miles Straw on third, I believe, and Nathan Lukes is on second at the time. You're thinking that Nathan Lukes is just going to go to second base and Miles is going to remain at third. Right? Wrong. Ernie Clement at the plate, he lays down a bunt. Miles Straw sees his chance to move to third base because he was on second at the time. And the pitcher, my goodness, throws it way out of the first baseman's way, and the first baseman can only walk to the Angels dugout saying, ball game, they win, it's over, everybody to the dugout, let's go, 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 it's gone. And the Jays dugout erupts like they won the World Series. And I mean, it erupted. It was like a crowd you never thought you'd hear at Rogers Center. Okay, let's move along. Saturday, pretty much the same score. Nothing too much to say here. Only takeaway is Addison Barger being able to walk it off. But the takeaway here from that game, there wasn't much to say about the Angels in Saturday's game, though there might have been, depending on who you ask. But Addison Barger, we call him on Blue Jays Central Bam Bam. But Addison, I mean, call him Bam Bam, call him whatever you want, but he did not like a call early in the game when he got struck out. He did not like a call. Now, I was thinking at the time it was because the umpire thought he was arguing. So therefore, there's a chance he could throw Addison out of the game in one of the innings. But again, it was a runner placed on second base at that time during extra innings. He breaks his bat, and then the very next at bat he had, he did the unthinkable. He hit this ball, and it's known as an RBI single. But does that does that really matter? I mean, really, does that really matter? What does matter is the fact that this time it wasn't an error. This time it was just a regular single. Oh, and by the way, this time it was 2 outs. So Addison gets a pop out. We're going to 12. It becomes a single and the Blue Jays walk it off. How many times have you seen one game go in extra innings, be a walk-off error and how many times have you seen extra innings where it's just a regular walk-off? Someone hits a ball in, the home team scores, and they walk it off. They win. The ball game is over. Not very many, I don't think. Now, Scott, I'm getting reports that we're getting the lineups for the White Sox. I think we should start working on the White Sox preparations for the game. But before we go from the Angels, just one key takeaway from the Angels side of things through this series that I'd like to hear from you.
Well, you pretty much said it. And you also, and even Kevin Barker pretty much said it. It all had to do with the Bam Bam play that, well, yeah, he broke his bat. The Addison broke his bat in the inning before he walked it off for the Blue Jays. And this is not fake news. Trust me. Even if you ask Addison, I don't think you're going to get a good answer, but Addison did break his bat. Addison did break his bat. And the next time he came up to the plate, he said, "Game over. Let's get out of here." Because let me just be clear here. When I say let's get out of here, I mean let's end this game on a high note. We got another game to play the next day before we wrap this series. And speaking of wrapping the series, we're hearing reports that we're getting the lineup for the White Sox series. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to go ahead and take our final commercial break of the program, open up with some quick thoughts on what's going on with the Nationals, and then Thomas and I will get you set up on this surprise Monday drop episode of Blue Jays Game Recap, the 18th episode of Season 4 of the podcast. Might drop on a Tuesday. Regardless, we'll get you all set up for it. Blue Jays and White Sox on the way. First pitch, I believe, is set for 7:40 p.m. Eastern. Who is the starters? What does the lineup look like? We'll get to all of that. But as we wrap things up here and get to the final break of the show, we'll touch on our thoughts on the Nats firing Dave Martinez and Mike Rizzo, their GM. Now, we do now know who the interim GM is, and we also know who the interim manager is. Who are they? Find out next.
What a busy traffic on this Friday evening. I am almost stuck in this traffic for the last 40 minutes. And there is no way, I think, for me to get to the show. The CNT Radio Song Bank, which is going to start very shortly. It's one of my favorite shows. And my, what a way to wind down for the weekend. Perfect 2 hours of fun-filled music. And she has so many great features. Sound of Music, Undercover, Foreign Exchange. Name that tune. And the big wheel that she spins. For Who's That? Or Where Are We? We cannot forget about the international stage. I have never come across such a great show in my life. I think I will have to press hard on my accelerator and go as fast as I can to get home in time. Wow! Wow! Look! I made it! I am almost there! CNT Radio, making your day brighter, one song at a time.
Looking for a good hockey podcast that covers your favorite hockey teams and mine? Check out On the Ice and Behind the Benches, where we chat about our favorite hockey teams from puck drop to the last play of the action. To learn more, follow the On the Ice and Behind the Benches Facebook page. Search On the Ice and Behind the Benches.
looking for conversations on the world of broadcasting, sports media, and from time to time, my favorite sports teams, listen to Broadcast Map with me, Ali Musa. To learn more about the show and to view the upcoming schedule, like the Broadcast Map Facebook page. Search Broadcast Map.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Blue Jays game recap. Blue Jays and the Yankees, Blue Jays and the Angels as well. White Sox and Blue Jays series set to start momentarily. This is a Canada Day episode 19, season 4, Sports for Beginners extravaganza. We talked about the Yankees to kick off the program. Now we're talking Angels midway through, and now it's time to set up Blue Jays White Sox. But before we do, Thomas and I had some news we wanted to talk about regarding the Washington Nationals, and here we go. We'll give you some thoughts on that in a moment, but here we go. Here's an article from MLB's Jessica Camrado, who writes, "The Nationals have parted ways with manager Dave Martinez and general manager Mike Rizzo. The team announced Sunday night," so that was last night. "Senior Vice President and Assistant General Manager Mike DiBartolo has been named the interim general manager. The team will make an announcement on an interim manager sometime on Monday, which is today." Martinez and Rizzo led the Nationals to their first World Series in team history in 2019. Rizzo was in his 17th year as the head coach, or as the head, I should say, of Washington's baseball operations. Martinez was the longest tenured and winningest manager in Nationals team history, with 500 wins and 622 losses. Wow. Now that we talked about who the interim general manager is, it's not quite on the coaches area right now for the Nats website, but here is your interim manager. Your interim manager is Miguel Carrero. Miguel Carrero is your, okay, I'll go with Miguel C, just in case I pronounced Miguel, your last name, wrong. I apologize. But he is your interim manager for the rest of the season for the Washington Nationals. Now, the Nationals made this decision on Sunday following being swept by the Boston Red Sox on the 4th of July weekend series. Not that I want to quote Big Nick on this, but Big Nick, shout out to you. I understand you were frustrated with the Yankees' loss on the 4th of July, which was Friday. But as Thomas said, we don't want to, when we're doing stuff like this, we don't want to get you down in the dumps. That's not what we do here. That is by far what we do here. We try to make it so every fan base, Toronto, Chicago, whether it's the Cubs or the White Sox or Los Angeles, whether it's the Dodgers or the Angels, the Yankees, the Mets, it doesn't matter. We're trying to make sure that we are calm and collected with every single fan base in baseball and elsewhere. Except with that said, Thomas, first of all, we'll start with you on the thoughts on Dave Martinez and Mike Rizzo being fired by the Nats. Are you at all surprised it came after the Red Sox sweep? When they were swept by the Red Sox, this firing happened?
No, I'm not really too surprised about it because fans will, and I bring fans into it because I'm sure Angels fans, National fans, White Sox fans, every fan base has their way of saying, we lost series with a manager who, or GM for that matter, who can't give us what the team standards are. So I'm not dissing the fan base in any way, shape, or form. No, I'm not doing that. I'm basically saying that we should have seen this coming months in advance because it takes a certain amount of games where eventually the organization, the fan base, and the team itself, the players, have had enough. Am I excited that Dave Martinez has accomplished a lot? Yeah, I am. Am I sad to see him leave? No, not really. I mean, I did think there was writing on the wall at one point, but a lot of people tried to get me to look at the positives for what was going to happen. I mean, look, for him to have as long a tenure as he did, I just think it was time to change. Now, the GM's a bit of a different story. The writing on the wall was probably there from the very beginning. It was just a matter of who goes first, or do they both go. So remind me again who that general manager was. Dave Martinez, and who else was it? Mike Rizzo, right?
Yeah, Mike Rizzo. Mike Rizzo and Dave Martinez. In case you're just joining us here, we did, first of all, want to recap with everybody. We talked about the Angels series. We talked about the Yankees series. We didn't quite do it the way that we normally do it, but that's okay. It's a homestand recap. So things kind of changed, but that's okay. Now we're talking, before we get you set up for the White Sox series, we're talking a little bit about Dave Martinez and Michael Rizzo being out of, I won't say out of jobs in Washington, but being fired by the Nationals.
To jump in to that, Scott,
Yes,
they
go ahead.
weren't really fired. They were kind of let go, but like you kind of knew something had to happen, and something had. Blue Jays fans were saying that John Ross, all these guys that are part of the Blue Jays organization at one point in the season, and particularly April, was where it was the most common, the beginning of the season. They were thinking that Ross, John, and Mark Shapiro, for that matter, were on contracts that were expiring this season. Could have initially fired them or let them go, but look what happened. They missed their opportunity. Now, they still have an opportunity, but the Blue Jays are now preparing at their standards that they need to be playing at. But I said earlier, they are riding high. And when you're riding high, somehow you could find a way to be at the lowest.
Yeah, and it takes everybody. It takes everybody to win.
It does. So I think the Nationals knew this was, I mean, by no means was this an easy decision. By no means was this an easy decision. But losing to the Red Sox and then losing the other games before the Red Sox, getting swept by the Red Sox as well, if that does not tell you that Dave Martinez and Mike Rizzo need to go, I don't know what will. It was a pleasure probably having them, and I'm sure they're all grateful for the accomplishments they have gotten with Dave Martinez and, of course, Mike Rizzo. But you just had to know something had to give at that point. Something had to give in order for the Nationals to start focusing on getting back to their standards. All right, I'll leave it for the fans to discuss as we now talk about the White Sox and the Blue Jays. But Scott, hopefully the new people you have, the intern manager, and of course the intern general manager, hopefully season. Maybe that's not getting into the postseason and being a division champion, but whatever it is, hopefully you approach the final couple of games in this series, in this season, I should say, understanding that what happened this season shouldn't happen next season. Will it happen next season?
Well, that depends.
That's something to discuss in the offseason. That's something to discuss in the offseason.
It depends. It really depends. All right, let's talk White Sox. White Sox starting a series with the Blue Jays tonight. After the series for the White Sox with the Jays wraps up on Wednesday afternoon, we got the Athletics, not the Oakland. the Athletics tap for the Blue Jays, and then it's the All-Star break. You mentioned when we were coming into the final moments of our show, Thomas, you mentioned that the lineups were coming out. I'll quickly first go for a little meeting on the mound, and then you can let everybody know. You don't have to let them know the White Sox lineup or whatever. You could just let them know who the Jays are playing with. But let's get it on. This series with the White Sox continues tomorrow, and it'll wrap up on Wednesday. All things aside, that is the series we are focusing on right now. First pitch for, as of today's recording, is at 7. It will be for the White Sox in matchup number 1. They are going with Sean Burke. The Blue Jays will counter with Jose Barrios. Once again, it is Jose Barrios going against Sean Burke in game number 1. Game number 2, that one is Chris Bassett for the Blue Jays against Aaron Savali. Aaron C, if I pronounce the last name wrong, Aaron, apologies in advance. Same thing for Chris Bassett. If I pronounced it wrong, apologies in advance. And last but certainly not least, it's Eric Lauer versus Adrian Hauser. That is the afternoon showdown. First pitch set for 2:10 p.m. Eastern Time. First pitch for tonight and tomorrow night's game set for 7:40 p.m. Eastern. All right. So, Thomas, let's get into game 1. Barrios versus Burke. What's John Schneider's lineup looking like?
All right, Blue Jay fans. So the Blue Jays will line up like this. In the outfield, we have Nathan Lukes at center field. You have in left, Joey Luperfido will be a part of the matchup. In right field, we've got Addison Barger. We mentioned Addison Barger a couple of times on this show. He will be in right field. Your infield looks like this. We've got Vladimir Guerrero Jr. at first base. Bo Bichette is at the shortstop base. You've got catching Jose Alejandro Kirk. And we've got Will Wagner and Ernie Clement at third and second base.
And
Blue
that is
Jays designated hitter for today, or I should say tonight, will be none other than George Springer. And I know you said we don't have to worry about the White Sox, but I'm going to bring out the White Sox outfield and infield just in case.
Yeah, and just to recap on that, that is how John Schneider will line up the Blue Jays tonight. So just to recap on who is leading off, that will be Nathan Lukes, followed by George Springer, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette, Addison Barger, Alejandro Kirk. 7th, 8th, and 9th spots belong to Will Wagner, Ernie Clement, and Joey Luperfido.
And your outfield and infield for the manager of the Chicago White Sox, he will be in left field, batting third. You'll have in center field, will be in center field. And your infield consists of the catcher being Kyle Teal. At shortstop, we have Colson Montgomery. I hope I'm saying that right. We've got Josh Rojas. Yep, Josh Rojas. At first base, we've got Miguel Vargas leading things up at third base. At second base, you've got, as I mentioned, it is Colson Montgomery with your catcher, Woody infield, Kyle Teal. So that's how the White Sox line up for Sean Burke against Jose Barrios. And a reminder that you can catch tonight's game at 7:40 p.m. Eastern Time, 6:40 p.m. Central Time, 5:40 p.m. Mountain Time, and 4:40 p.m. Pacific Time.
And with that being
on the
said,
East Coast,
the manager of the Chicago White Sox, as we speak with you, is Will Venable. I'll go with Will V, just in case I pronounced that wrong. And I actually think I got that right. Yeah, I did get that right. Will Venable. He is going to be our manager for the White Sox, opposing the Blue Jays for the first three couple of nights, as the 6-game road trip begins tonight and ends off our first half of the season. A minor note for season content
I
on
think just
sports.
in case we forget, Scott, before we wrap up the show,
Yeah, go ahead, Thomas.
I think just a minor note for those of us who are following the American League East very, very closely, now knowing that the Blue Jays are the sole possession of the American League East. It is important to note that the Tampa Bay Rays and the Boston Red Sox are the only American League East besides the Blue Jays that are on the tailpin today to play. The Orioles will be opening up a series with the New York Mets Tuesday when we have game 2 against the White Sox. And the Mariners are opening up a game series against the Yankees on Tuesday as well. They are the teams ideal for the American League East. So whichever game, if you're a Yankee fan or an Oriole fan, you are tuning into, the teams of conversation to look out for today are the Blue Jays against the White Sox. Tampa Bay is playing the Tigers, and you've got the Red Sox home against the Rockies of Colorado in
All right.
Fenway Park.
All right, and one minor note as we wrap things up for Sports for Beginners season content, episode 20 will be following the Major League Baseball Midsummer Classic. That will also follow one of our next Blue Jays game recaps following the 6-game homestand where the Yankees will be here for the weekday, I should say. And the Giants are here for the weekend. Pretty busy week for the Blue Jays when they return home. But right now they have a 6-game road trip with 3 against the White Sox tonight and 3 against the Athletics starting on Friday. Then it's the Midsummer Classic, episode 20 of season 4. We'll return our content on Sports for Beginners with that happening following the last game of the Yankees 3-game series against the Blue Jays. That will be a first half season recap and maybe some takeaways from the All-Star game and break. But with that being said, that is going to do it for this. Wow, it's probably going to be an hour, maybe 2 hours. But for however long it is, thank you so much for joining us. A lot that we covered. We covered the Nats firing Dave Martinez and Mike Rizzo in their staff, their coaching staff and front office. We covered the 2 series we've been speaking about, the Angels and the Blue Jays, and of course, the Yankees and the Blue Jays. Blue Jays' final score against the Yankees in the last game of that series. Via our schedule, as I look back at the Blue Jays schedule, 8-5 Blue Jays over the Yankees, and they won yesterday the final game of the series against the Angels by a score of 3-2. Now the focus turns to the 30-60 Chicago White Sox. And again, as I said, Blue Jays game recap will continue throughout the series of the White Sox. On the ice and behind the benches, we'll have you covered for the Athletic series. And then it's off to the All-Star break. And ahead of the Tigers 4-game series out of the All-Star break, it's another Blue Jays game recap. Homestand recap. 2 different recaps, 2 different shows, all original Blue Jay game recap shows, and of course, an episode of Sports for Beginners to follow. That is our 20th episode of season 4.
One minor thing to note for those of you tuning into the Athletics and the Blue Jay series that gets started on Friday, if you're planning on staying up Friday night or even Saturday night into Sunday morning, Blue Jays game recap for those series will be launching on the ice and behind the benches, probably in the afternoon, late evening, before the next game gets going, as the first pitch flies at 5 minutes after 10 o'clock p.m. on the East Coast, 5 minutes after 9 o'clock on the Central Coast, I believe, and I believe that would be 7 minutes Pacific time on the 7 o'clock hour at 7:05 in the Pacific Coast.
Yeah, that would be 10:05 p.m. 7:05 p.m. Pacific, and of course 9:05 p.m. Central. And that
But
is
again, if you are
and that
tuning
is for
in to
Friday
these
and
games, because
Saturday.
they're but if you are tuning into those games for the night games and you're planning on staying up, I usually say this for hockey games. But if you are planning on staying up, you might want to bring your pillowcase to the game. And if you're going to the game, but it's not too late, then don't bring it, but have it handy with you on the ride home, because I'm sure it will be quite a night owl game for those of us on the East Coast.
Yes, and indeed it is a night owl game.
But that's Friday and Saturday. For now, as the great Jerry Howard would say, sit back and enjoy watching Blue Jays, White Sox baseball, and we'll be back with you on the Ice and Behind the Benches to hear Scott's thoughts on Game 1, Game 2, and Game 3 of the 3-game series set between the team of conversation now, the Chicago White Sox. Send us out, Scott.
Thank you very much. And as I mentioned before, that is going to do it for this episode of Sports for Beginners, our 19th episode of Season 4. Wow, 19 episodes of Season 4. And we only did 12 in the first go at it. Wow. We just keep breaking records, ladies and gentlemen, on this podcast. We just keep breaking episode records. We just keep piling on. Whether it's bonus content, episodes season-wise, we just keep piling on as we try to figure out what is best for the show. And given how many plays we have been getting, as long as Thomas and I keep things at a minimal and get things going, we'll be all right. As I mentioned, 12 episodes, one season, a couple episodes in season 2 and in season 3, and a couple of interviews in each season. So we're on a pretty good roll despite starting season 1 when we weren't really supposed to start it, mid-season. And speaking of mid-season, we are approaching the mid-season, but more on that in the days to come. My name is Scott McGregor. Thank you so much for joining us for this Canada Day / 4th of July program, Blue Jays game recap. The outro music for Blue Jays game recap today is going to take us out just like the intro music brought us in. That will not be the case, however, on episode 20. Everything will be back the way that it normally is for a season episode, because that is not a Blue Jays show. Well, it is a Blue Jays show, but it's not a game recap show. With that said, thank you so much for joining us. I will be back with you after Game 1 of the White Sox series, and I look forward to seeing you then. With that said, love one another. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to one another. We'll see you next time on Sports for Beginners. Thank you so much for joining us on Sports for Beginners, the podcast, for Blue Jays game recap, the after show on Sports for Beginners, the podcast, right after every Blue Jays game. To learn more about upcoming esports, when they drop, and schedule, please visit https://sportsforbeginners0.wordpress.com. Follow the show on Facebook at facebook.com/sportsforbeginners87. Send us an email at sportsforbeginners87@gmail.com. Follow Ali, Thomas, and Scott on Twitter at Scott McGregor 3, Thomas J, and ALI Musa. Follow Thomas and Scott on Instagram at SMC_87_ and TM_80 and TM00_. Thanks for listening to Blue Jays Baseball, and we hope to see you soon again. This has been Blue Jays Game Recap. Once again, the website is https://sportsforbeginners0.wordpress.com. Thanks for listening. And when it's time for the Blue Jays to play ball, there's only one chant Blue Jays fans will be using. Catch you later, baseball fans.